everybody. Kimberly Ray with Marine Conservation Network, and welcome aboard. Thank you for joining us today. We are here with another side of the coin of the story, as we do in most of our interviews. We try to give both sides of the ins and outs of stories that most of the public don't know. And we have with us today David Holroyd, also known as David Capello. He is an ex-dolphin trainer in the UK. And we're going to talk to him a little bit about what happens behind the scenes that most of the public doesn't know about, that you should know about in order for us to protect the wonderful ocean that we call our life support. So welcome, David. Thank you for joining us today. I'm so glad we got to get together.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for giving me the platform.
So tell us, how did your initial passion for working with dolphins evolve into what you were doing, and were your expectations when you started as a dolphin trainer? What were your expectations back then?
Well, when I initially got the job, I had no expectations of being a dolphin trainer, to tell you the truth. I answered an advertisement in a local newspaper asking for dolphin presenters. Now, it was almost like you have these shows in America and here in England, like if you want to be a star and all this business and X Factor. And it was very much that way inclined back in those 1970s. Right. So, of course, I applied for a job. I never even thought of the dolphin. I imagined long sun-kissed beaches and palm trees and everything but a dolphin, quite literally. I got the job out of 350 applicants.
Wow.
And I was taken to be a dolphin presenter. There is a difference. A lot of people don't know this. Okay. A dolphin presenter is somebody that you see on the stage all the time with the dolphins. They look good, pretty, and all the rest of it. But most of them are not trainers, they are presenters. Okay. The trainers operate normally in the background. They do the hard work, basically, and don't get all the glory, you know. Anyway, I went to learn to be a presenter, and they shipped me off to a place called South Elmsall. Now, this is in the UK, and it's in Yorkshire. Now, the South Elmsall training pool, where I was going to learn my trade, was known as the secret pool. It's had an awful lot of press in this country. Oh, wow. Because it was visibly hidden away from the public. And it was right at the beginning of the dolphin boom. So none of the people that was taken, and there was only 2 other people, had actually seen a real live dolphin. But we had a recognized head trainer there to teach us. And the dolphins came in from Florida then, not from Taji, but from Florida in the early 1970s. Wow. And I saw my first dolphin in the back of a rigid van, wow. Steel-plated van. And the dolphin had been, there was a shipment of 2, Duchess, the female, and Herbie, the male. They later became known as the perfect pair. Wow. They became known as, they were a very famous pair of dolphins. I think in America, you refer to them as the Entam dolphins. Oh, okay. Because I was actually offered a job in America, in Chicago, funnily enough. And they knew the dolphins as the Entam dolphins, because that's why they approached me, because I actually trained the Entam dolphins. Okay. So you would probably know them as the Entam dolphins. Here in the UK, they were known as the perfect pair.
Well, that's interesting, because I wanted to be a dolphin trainer when I was growing up. You know, kids, they see Flipper and out in the ocean, everything like that. Yeah. I didn't realize, first of all, that there was a difference between a presenter and a trainer. So that's something very important that the public needs to know, because they think they're all the same. So whatever negativity they put out, it goes on all of them instead of realizing that there's a difference. So that's very interesting and very good that you mentioned that. And you said that the first time you saw the dolphins was in the back of the truck. Was that the very beginning of you working as a dolphin presenter, or was that later on?
That was the very beginning of me working as a dolphin presenter. I can remember the first dolphin I actually saw. They took one dolphin out of the van, which was the male, and they told me to stay in the back of the van with the female. And I had a gold signet ring on. And of course, I was looking at this dolphin, and she looked in a terrible state. She was full of Vaseline, and she was in a sling. And she'd been in that transport crate for about 48 hours. From going from Florida to traveling to the airport in Florida to get into Ords eventually in England. She'd been there for not far short of 48 hours. And I remember looking at her, and I flashed the ring. I put my hand into the canvas and I flashed the ring, and her eye looked at me, and it was this beautiful blue eye. And it was magical. That's all I can describe it as. And what I did find is that I felt nauseous. It was as if she was drawing the energy from me. And I call this now, later went on to train by using a method called the connection. And this was how I discovered the connection with that dolphin, Duchess. And of course, once I got Duchess out, she became my princess, and I completely fell in love with the dolphins that I had.
I can definitely tell that. And so that was at the very beginning. How long were you actually a dolphin presenter / trainer? How long were you in that industry?
Well, I was only a dolphin presenter for 6.5 months. Because I was made up in the dolphin training pens as a trainer. In fact, I was commissioned from the dolphin training pens in South Elmshall to open the premier show in the UK, and it was my pool, Knowsley Safari Park Dolphinarium. And it was the biggest venue at the time because it seated over 2,000 people. And that was my pool. And I opened on stage within a year, on stage with a very young Duchess and Herbie, Acker, the perfect pair. And this is very, very important that the public understand this, that a dolphin, or an Atlantean, as I like to call them, can jump into our minds as easily as that. Alas, it's a lot harder for us to do the same.
Exactly. And that's probably a combination of their intelligence and their spirituality, but also the echolocation that they use in the wild. They use it the same way with us. In the wild, they use it to see their food, which one's better to eat, which one's not, how far away it is, and all of that. If they can do all that in the wild, there's no reason why they can't connect with you when they were in captivity, because they have that capability. So that's
correct. Remember that they've got no vocal cords. So if they're ever going to talk to us, and I know that governments throughout the world have been trying to advance this for many, many years. If they're ever going to talk to us, it's through there. And that is the way the dolphin talks. They talk through the mind. And as I say, I call it's a telepathy. And like you said, humans had this thousands of years ago. It hasn't gone away. It's still there. We've just been conditioned not to use it.
Right, exactly. And we do know that dolphins in different areas and different pods have a culture, and they have a language, and they even have names for each other. So they obviously can communicate. We're just trying to figure out how we can communicate with them. And you are definitely on the right path with connecting telepathically and everything. So that's wonderful. Can you describe a moment, because obviously you went through good and bad through the years that you were working with the dolphins. What was the moment that told you, okay, I need to walk away from this. This is no longer the good thing that I need to be doing? What triggered that to happen?
Well, what triggered the trigger was I lost Herbie, and
Oh,
Herbie was the male dolphin in the perfect pair, and I can remember. It's 57 years ago now, and yet I can remember that horrible night as clearly as I'm talking to you now. I'd been in and out of the water with Herbie. I knew he'd been in trouble for a while, and he suddenly began to sink, and of course I dived into the water to get, and I'm a very strong swimmer, and I certainly was then. I mean, I used to swim before I got the dolphin job for my hometown and all the rest of it, so I was known as a very good swimmer. And I'd become stronger, of course, because I'd been working with the dolphins for so many years and hand catching and stuff like this. And he began to sink, and I can remember diving in, and it was like swimming down a funnel.
wow.
And I couldn't quite reach him. And my coordination had gone as he was sinking slowly. And the water around me was turning red and milky, like a blood mix, and he was disemboweling obviously as he was going down, and it was a nightmare. And I eventually got him on the bottom of the pool, and I had to maneuver myself to try and get him back up, and I'm talking 12 feet of water here. This was the depth of the pool.
Wow.
And I cradled him and then shot to the top of the water. As I pushed him from the water, there was a load of handlers who immediately grabbed him, dragged him on the stage, and I never saw him again.
Oh.
I got out of the water and I collected my things, and I was the head trainer for 3 different dolphin areas. And I closed that door behind me and swore I would never walk back on a dolphin stage again. And that was when I left.
And from this, that was back in the 70s, is that correct?
That's right, yeah.
What do you see that's different from back then in the 70s to what's happening now in aquariums?
I'm helping throughout different people all the time. As I'm speaking to you, I've spoken to many other people. And I helped a lady called Tracy Ozdemir close down a dolphinarium in Turkey. And it was my witness statement on the treatment of the animals that helped close it down. The management of that particular dolphinarium, it was Miramas dolphins, they didn't even contest what had happened, because it read like a horror show. That what was happening, things far worse than in my day. Wow. So if you ask me, have things changed? It's certainly in these smaller dolphinariums, the answer is no. In the Asian dolphinariums, the answer is no. I would have said that in the States it's a lot better. I still disagree with them, but having seen what happened at Marineland with the death of Lolita, I think that reads like a horror show. I think there's been a lot of things done there, and there's been a lot of conning going on by a management that cared only for money again.
What do you think the difference is between animals in the circus, land animals in the circus, as opposed to animals in the aquariums, as far as what the public sees?
Well, the difference is you drastically cut the lifespan first of all with a marine animal, with a dolphin or a whale. You cut the life, no matter what the industry tells you, you at least cut the lifespan of that animal by a third. That is a fact. Also, most of the inmates, the Atlantean inmates within the aqua circus, suffer deep psychological problems. as do, I have to say, many of the trainers who train them. Because on one of my books, on the final book, I actually used the saying, dolphinariums don't just break dolphins, they break people too.
Before you became a dolphin presenter, were you interested in the marine field at all, or was this something like you came upon as a kid and you just wanted to try it out? Was the passion already there, or did this?
Yeah, it probably was. It probably was, because I had as I say, I was a very strong swimmer. I had a fantastic aquarium in the living room, so I was mad on tropical fish. And I had done some diving as well. But I'd never thought of training a dolphin. No, this was completely alien to me. As I said earlier on, it was in those early days when I saw that interview, it was an escape from dreary Manchester where it rained all the time. Because, as I say, I had a completely different mindset. I thought I was going on adventure, which I certainly had. And I thought everything was going to be rosy, and it certainly wasn't.
Well, that leads right into, you got from the adventure, you took a lot of new information and then realized a lot of things that were going on, and then you wrote a book called The Perfect Pair. Tell me a little bit about that, because I find it very interesting about that.
I got involved with my sister, obviously, who was a writer. She's a well-known author anyway, and she said, you should write this story. And I said, oh, I won't have enough material for a book. 3 books later, because of the perfect I completed the Dolphin trilogy. But even writing about it totally ripped me apart. I mean, I ended up in hospital. I couldn't swallow, and because of course there were some horrible things we had to do when dolphins didn't eat. We had to force feed. Many dolphins never took a fish willingly again.
Wow.
I mean, in the early 70s, the lifespan of a captive dolphin was no more than 4 years. 70 years in the wild, 4 years. That was it.
So in some things they've improved, but overall it's still not a good thing for them to be in there, because they are so intelligent, and they do in the wild have to swim thousands of miles. That's
correct.
And that's why it's so hard on them.
Yeah, there's also some practices that take place within the commercial dolphinariums today that took place when I was a trainer. Now, I actually exposed this in the Perfect Pair Dolphin trilogy. Nobody ever came back to challenge me on it, because it is a practice still used today. And they're called shake sessions. Now, it's when the dolphin or the whale, whatever you're dealing with, is so fed up and so tired of doing its shows, but you have a quota to fill. So you have to get the performances out, because obviously X amount of money is being lost every time they lose a show. And the shake sessions, which I must admit I was involved with some of those, was to beat the water with poles to wake them up.
Wow.
Now, I've done talks in Asia, and the last one I did was 7 years ago, because before COVID came and all the rest of it. And I was speaking to an aqua clown who just come from a major dolphinarium in Asia, and I told him about the shake sessions, and he said, well, he said the shake sessions do happen. He said, but they happen behind closed doors. He said, but they don't beat the water, they beat the dolphins.
Oh man.
And I also saw this Death at SeaWorld, the book Death at SeaWorld, when they interviewed the trainers there were numerous hints by the trainers who you could tell wanted to say something but were afraid to say something, that pointed to shake sessions taking place with the orcas.
Wow. there's no, with all the controversy going on, personally, MCM cannot see that aquariums are still buying dolphins to the level of what Taiji say they are. So a lot of it is just the way they were trained from young kids to start doing this all the way up into adults, and the belief system that was impressed on them. Yeah. So just have to go out there and teach them, I guess.
It is. Well, the thing is, it might have been a tradition, but it's not a tradition anymore. Taiji is a gangster town. Believe me, the mafia, the Japanese mafia is alive and well in that town. Right. And no wonder, because at 150,000 or 170,000 a dolphin, that's serious money. Yeah. So this isn't about keeping up the tradition. Their main money, the main gross money from Taiji is coming for sales to the global aqua circus.
Right, right.
And we could stop this butchery today if everybody ripped up a ticket or wouldn't buy a ticket to see a dolphin show. Because once this money stops, I think you'll find that Taiji, which is more lucrative now than it has ever been.
Wow.
I mean, they're even, it's not just Taiji now. There's other Japanese coastal towns adopting this because of the money. This just, that money is huge.
Right.
And it attracts criminal elements.
What is your hope for bringing all this information out to the public and writing the stories and giving the talks? What is your hope to accomplish from all this, to expose all this? What do you wish for it to happen in the future?
Well, I wish, as I said earlier, that dolphins or Atlanteans are reclassified as non-human persons. India has already gone down that path. But when you're dealing with such a large amount of money, and remember, money is what feeds this game. You're treading on some very powerful toes. I mean, government toes as well. I mean, because certain government officials don't want to upset another official because they've got some big deal going along, you know, and they don't want to lose this and all the rest of it. I think if we can educate, I mean, I will talk to anybody. I'm talking to you now, and the people who are watching our conversation, if they want to get in touch with me and give me a platform, I will say this time and time again. I never tire of telling people of the plight of the commercial Atlantean. I never tire of it. We've got to stop this. In this day and age, it's immoral. It's obscene that we are still going to see this. I know the children will always get the mums and dads, pull on them to say, I want to see a dolphin. That's quite natural. Right. But it's up to the mums and dads to educate the children to say, this is not the way to see a dolphin.
Exactly.
If you don't buy the ticket, dolphinariums close down.
What advice would you give for the youth that are getting involved in marine conservation and marine biology? We have a youth ambassador program with our organization, and they're out there making big oceans a difference. But what would your advice be if one of the young scientists wanted to get involved with dolphins and whales as far as protecting them? Should they do more research for aquariums like what you've done, or should they do something out in the wild?
They should do something out in the wild, because you don't get research, you don't get true results of research in a concrete bowl. It doesn't work that way. And if they ever want to become a trainer, or they want to work within the commercial dolphinarium industry, well, prepare to have your heart broken.
Well, this has been a very, very eye-opening talk today. I'm really thankful, and I appreciate you coming on today. A lot of things that you mentioned, I didn't even realize. And like I said, when I started young, I wanted to be a dolphin trader. I thought that was the greatest thing. You know, I was a kid. I didn't know any better yet. been out in the field. And then the more you get to know them and the more you're out there, you learn all these things that just aren't right.
Yeah.
One more last advice that I want to ask from you is that people that are out there wanting to make a difference, aside from not buying the tickets for the Dolphin Aquarium or not wanting to be a dolphin trainer, what can they do to change this? Is there any kind of activity they can do to change this besides not buying tickets?
Well, there's all they can do is they can go on the demos, but I'm not sure that has a great effect. What we need to do is get the press involved, because most of the press curtail to the big power players, to the big companies. And while they're doing that, while they're being fed or placating these big companies and they're placating governments, we don't get the truth. If the press, and I mean the global press, came down and they made it their mission to expose this industry for the sham that it is, and I'll go up against any of the SeaWorld trainers and I'll argue my corner. And I very much doubt whether anybody will take that challenge up, by the way. But I will argue that corner because I know what goes on behind closed doors. And the public don't. But I want them to know. And if if they want to view me as the enemy or a bad man, well, that's okay, because all that matters is the result. And the result is the ending of the global aqua circus.
Thank you very much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. This was, I know this was probably a hard interview for our followers to listen to, but we feel that it's a side that they needed to hear. They need to know what's going on out there and not blemish it to where, you know, make it look all the glamour and glitz, like you say, when they put it out there for this aquarium, and know exactly what's happening. So thank you again for joining us today. I really appreciate it. We're going to make sure that we put all your information in the link below for the YouTube channel. If anybody has any questions, they can contact you or us.
Yeah.
And for you followers out there, please go on and like and subscribe to this. There's more coming. We've got more videos and interviews lined up. We got a lot of things happening on our board. So everybody come along with us and join us. And together we make oceans of difference. Thanks, everybody. And thank you, Dave. And we'll talk to everyone later. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.